Hello, welcome to my channel, welcome to my garage. This is Rick's Garage, and today I'm going to be painting up these 1/16 scale figures for the 1/4 ton truck by Takom. And if you haven't seen the build video on that or the paint and weathering video, I'll put a link down into the descriptions below. But I originally was going to do a diorama, which is why I got this set, because it includes an MP figure. But plans have changed. I'm not going to be able to do that diorama because the person I'm going to be giving this kit to is going to have probably just enough room to display the truck and the trailer. So I'm going to use this guy later on, maybe in a different build, but I'm going to start assembling and painting up these three figures. Now I do have the gun, as you see here, I do have this gun already painted and ready to go into the truck, but I haven't put it into the truck yet because I want to make sure that it can easily fit once these three figures are in. So let me show you how this is all going to come to you. They come in individual packs, and the first one I'm going to do is going to be the driver, and you can see that he holds on to the steering wheel. So here's a build tip. If you're going to or planning on building your truck, do not glue the steering wheel onto the shaft. You want to, or the steering column. You want to leave that off the steering column because you want to make sure that it's going to fit okay into the hand of this figure. And I'm going to guess that it's going to be a little difficult, and it would be more difficult if you glued that steering wheel onto the column there. So that's just a little bit of build tip. I know it's a little bit late if you've already started or have completed your build, but hopefully you have not glued, or if you did, it's not impossible for you to break that seal off so that you can put this figure in. Now the Takom truck does come with a figure. And you can, if you've already got your figure in there and you've got it already, his hand on the steering wheel, no big problem. If you want to update this and add 2 more figures to it, you can. It's just that one figure is going to be resin, the other figure is going to be the driver in the Takom is plastic. So the other thing that I like about this is that these are not on sprues. They've already taken them off the sprues. This is resin, so there's nothing to cut off, no supports to cut off. So the only thing I'm going to do is do a little bit of inspecting of where pieces need to be sanded off. I'll wash these off with soap and water, and I will start to assemble his body. Now I'm not going to put the head on first. I'm going to leave that off, paint that first before I put it onto the body, because that will make it a lot easier to paint the face, as well as I think he comes with an undershirt. Yeah, there's a green undershirt that he's wearing, and it will be a lot easier to paint that with the head off rather than it being on. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this, get this started on painting, and which is the first step is on the painting is to put a shadow coat on it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it an airbrush spray of Tamiya's Nato Black, which is a flat black, so basically any flat black will work. And that will then create a shadow coat, and then from there on, I'll start painting up the figure. So let me get all that started, and we'll come back and go on to the next step. Okay, so I more or less have completed the construction of the figure. I haven't got the head on yet, and it comes with a canteen, and I'm not going to put that on yet either. I'm going to wait until everything is all done, and I'll put this on as one of the last things that I do. It'll make it a lot easier to paint the area that it goes in with this off than it is when it's on. I did have to use some gray putty, which you can see I've got right here. This is Tamiya gray putty, and I had to use that right back here where the jacket comes down to the pant line. There's a large gap there that I had to fill in with gray putty. And then I also had to put in just a little bit underneath the folds. I don't know if the camera can see this or not, but there's a fold right here where the jacket comes down under the pants, and there was a large gap. So I filled that in with putty as well. The camera probably can't see it, but up close in real life here, as you're really actually holding the piece and looking at it, you can see that it's all filled in. Right back here though, I do have a little bit more of sanding I have to do to get that all smoothed out, and also to simulate a little bit more of the wrinkles of the jacket coming down. I can do that with a little bit more putty. But actually, we have right now, this is the completed figure from an assembly standpoint. Now you'll notice I've got a wooden screw attached to the bottom of the figure, and that's going to help me to move the figure around as I'm painting it. And I'm going to put the screw into this wooden block as a stand. So I'll screw this in, and this will be like a stand for the figure to sit on to dry, as well as to also help me to maneuver it and turn it around in different angles for me to do some painting, and also for the airbrushing that I'm going to be doing. Now the primer that I'm going to use, it's not really a primer, it's a flat black. It's called Tamiya NATO black, but any flat black will do. And I'm going to spray that all over the figure. It's not going to go onto the head or the face. I'm going to do this separately. And that's going to be start off with our shadow coat, and it's also going to bring out whatever flaws that I missed in the sanding and in the putty that I put on. So once that NATO black is on, that flat black is on, and I check everything to make sure everything is okay, then I can continue on with the painting. I was a little concerned about the steering wheel. Take this off the block. I was a little bit concerned that the steering wheel was not going to fit into the hand, but as you can see, the steering wheel fits very easily into the hand. So if you've already got this, I'm going there like that. So if you already got this attached to your vehicle, you're not going to have any problem getting that hand around the steering wheel. But I'm still going to put the steering wheel in after the figure is installed. I'm still thinking that that will be the easier way to go. Trying to get the figure in with the steering wheel in might be a little bit difficult. Okay, so let me get all this painting done, or at least get the NATO black on. We'll come back and we'll start on the next step. Okay, we got the NATO black on, and everything turned out just fine without any real touch-up that had to be done in terms of sanding or any additional putty work. Everything turned out just fine. So the next step is to go ahead with the painting. And how I'm going to paint this up is I'm going to try to match the colors that are on the insert card. And to me, this looks like khaki on the jacket, and looks like brown for the pants, and it looks like also brown on the shoes, and these ankle coverings here also looks a little bit of a light brown, but I'm going to try to match the coloring. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the shirt done, or the jacket, and then also too the shirt here looks like it's olive drab. So let me get those colors on in terms of the jacket and the shirt, and we'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, I'm in the middle of putting the khaki onto the jacket, and this color is from Vallejo, and I'm doing it as a wash, which is why you see a lot of the NATO black showing through. And I'm going to put on several layers of this wash onto the jacket until I get to the coverage that I'm looking for. But I wanted to pause in the process and show you how I'm doing this. Again, it's just a wash. I'm just dipping the paintbrush into water and very lightly applying the khaki onto the jacket. Now, there's a lot of touch-up work that I've got to do, but that's where we're at so far. So I'm going to continue on with this process, and when it's all done, I'll show you what the end result looks like. Okay, the body of the figure is done. I haven't done the face and the hands yet. That's going to be next. But again, I'm trying to match the color from the picture that you see here and apply that onto the figure that you see here. So the coloring that I've done is on the jacket is khaki from Vallejo. On the pants is chocolate brown from Vallejo. On the white straps that you see here, I used Age White from Vallejo. And on the leggings right here on the ankle protections, these things right here, I used Tamiya Buff. And then on the boots, I also used Vallejo Chocolate Brown. Again, the way in which I applied the colors, or the paint, was to water it down until it was almost transparent, and then waited for each application to dry before moving on to the next step. And I did that just to build up the coloring until I got to the effect I was looking for. So for example, on the straps right here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit easier, focus. I wanted the straps to look like that they've been worn. So I didn't want to have them bright white or a bright color. I wanted some wear. And the way I achieved that was not to apply the aged white dark or thick. I wanted some of that natal black to show through to show the wear. On the clasps right here, I used flat black from Vallejo. Okay, now on the picture you can see that there is some detailing or a stitch contrast. I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but there is a stitch contrast going around the collar here up and through there, and so there's a darker stitching for the jacket, and I achieved that on the figure here. Hopefully you can see it. I applied some dark panel liner from Tamiya, and on the shirt right here, that is NATO green from Tamiya, and on the belt right through here, that's also NATO green from Tamiya. Now I haven't got the canteen on yet. I'm going to actually fix that on in a moment or two. But the way I applied that was the same way that I did the jacket. Now this is painted on with Tamiya Buff in thin layers until I got to the effect that I was looking for. Again, I wanted to make it look like it was worn, and also too, I wanted the paint to somewhat kind of dry and be tacky in order to maintain the details of the cloth straps or stripes, or the effects of cloth right in through here. So there's a little bit of a detail of that showing through. I don't know if the camera can pick that up or not, but I wanted to get that to show through, so that's why again I used very thin applications of the Tamiya Buff. And then the cap is NATO green. Okay, so now the next step is to work on the face, and the way I'm going to do the face is exactly the same way that I did the jacket. I'm going to use Tamiya Flat Flesh, and it's going to be on thin layers, just to apply it on very, very thin, almost like a glaze. That's going to go on just something like that. Now, the camera's in my way, so trying to do this on camera is a little bit difficult for me. But I'm just going to apply this on, wait for this to dry, and then give it another layer until I get to the coverage that I'm looking for. So when I'm done, I'll come back and show you what the first layer looks like. Okay, this is what our face looks like now with the first coat on, and I'm in the process of putting on our second coat. And again, you want to put on layer after layer of thin coats of the color until you can't see the natal black or your flat black color showing through. So you want to slowly build up the layers until you have a completely covered face in the flat flesh that we're using. And you want to make sure that you allow each layer to dry before you apply your additional layer. This is going to take maybe 5 or 6 applications. So let me get all this on, and we'll come back and show you the final result. Okay, this is how your face should look once all the layers of the flat flesh have been applied. And you shouldn't see any of the natal black showing through. Okay, now the next step that you want to do is you want to take some Vallejo Light Rust Wash. And this has already been pre-thinned, so you don't have to thin it in water. And just apply it to your face all around. This is going to give it kind of like an orangey look, but it's also going to give a little bit of life and color to your face. So get that, and once that's dry, we'll go on to the next step. Okay, now once the rust wash is dried, it should basically look like this. You don't want to have a lot of it on there, just enough to give your skin tone a little bit of coloring. And don't worry too much about the unevenness. That's all going to blend together. And also, when you're applying the wash, make sure that you don't allow pooling, particularly around the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. You want to make sure it's more or less an even coat. Okay, now once that's done, we're going to do one of the most scary parts, and that's the eyes. Now, I understand that on a 1/35th scale and lower, you don't put in the whites of the eyes. A lot of highly skilled artists do. So the only thing that you would have to do here is just to put in just the eyeball, the iris of the eye. And you can choose any color you want, blue, brown, what have you, black. But I'm going to try to do the whites of the eye. Now, I'm not a highly skilled artist, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So let me go ahead and get those in, and also the eyes as well. Come back and I'll show you what that hopefully is going to look like. Okay, I got the eyes in, the whites and also the eye, and it looks pretty good. I think I did a pretty good job. Now remember, you're not going to be looking at this really super close up as you are here in the video. I mean, this is really super close. You're going to be looking at your model at a normal distance, say something like this, and it's going to look a lot better. And what you're really trying to do is you're trying to capture the essence that the figure is actually looking at something, that there is some life to the figure. And that's what we're trying to capture. And the further away you look at it, the better it does look. Now the eyes are not looking straight ahead, they're looking at an angle, because if you notice in the picture, the driver is looking off to the side. So if you look at it this way, it kind of looks almost exactly like the photo. So that part we have basically achieved. Now the next step that you're going to want to do is you're going to take your base color, whatever color that you used. In our case, we're using the light flesh, and you want to take that base color and you want to start to work on the raised areas of the face, not the recesses, but the raised areas of the face, like the cheekbone and the nose, the chin, the neck, and this is going to give it a little bit more of a dimension. And you want to avoid the mouth and the eyes and the ears. So let me go ahead and get this on. We'll come back and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, now that you got your highlights in there from the base color that you're working with, in our case it is the light flesh color from Vallejo, we're going to do another rust wash, a very light rust wash. This is the same rust wash you did the first time, but this time it's going to be even lighter. You just want to brush it on very lightly, and you want to avoid the eyes because you don't want any of the red to get into the eye sockets. You don't want your figure to look like he's got jaundice. So you want to go over just all over the face, the neck, the ears, everywhere else, and just do it very lightly. And this is going to give more variation of skin tone and color, because if you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not all one color. You have various different shades. Some are lighter, some are darker, and so forth. So that's what you're trying to achieve here. So this is going to be a little bit more delicate work. I can't do this on camera, but I am going to apply it, and when I'm done, I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, here is our figure all painted up and assembled. And the painting process that I did on the face and on the hands is from SpruesNBrews, and I will put a link down in the descriptions below to his video on how to paint face figures. He does it in a 1/35th scale standpoint. This is a 1/16th scale, but the steps are relatively the same. So I want to give credit where credit is due, and that would be to link to the SpruesNBrews YouTube channel so you can see his full entire video on how to paint figures. Okay, so the final step that we're going to do here, or the next to the final step, is to give this a coat of semi-gloss clear, which would be Tamiya TS79. That's going to give us a foundation so we can put on the decals. Now this kit does not come with decals. You have to make your own. And the decals that I printed up, I found on the website. I searched for World War II stripes. So this is going to be a corporal. So I'm going to give this guy some corporal stripes. The other figures are going to be a sergeant and 2 privates. And I'm going to take those images that I found on the internet, print those on Waterslide decals, and then apply them to this figure after the semi-gloss has dried completely. I'll put a link in the descriptions below on where I got the semi-gloss or the decal slide paper. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that clear on this figure, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay. I have the figure here. It has a coat of semi-gloss. Now you can use a gloss or a semi-gloss. I just happened to pick up the semi-gloss in my arsenal of paints. And then after that was all dried, I put on the decals, which you can see there on the shoulder. And these are decals that I made. And you have it, of course, on the other side as well. Now the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a dark wash. Now you can use ammo dark wash, or you can use Tamiya black accent panel and or the black panel liner, which is what I'm going to use, mainly because I don't have the ammo dark wash on hand. That's just going to give a little bit more dimension to the figure. It's going to bring out some artificial shadowing and a little bit more details of the figure itself. And then once that is all dry, then I will apply the last thing will be a coat of flat clear to bring down that shine, to protect all the paint and also give a top layer to the decals. So let me get all that done, and then once that is completed, I'll put this in the truck and show you the completed build. Okay, I'm in the process now of adding the black panel liner, and I want to do part of this on camera just to show you how I'm doing it. And I'm just going to rub it all over the model. Don't worry about the whites of the eyes, because we'll fix that a little bit later if too much of this has gone onto the model. And then after all this has been applied, I'm going to take a clean brush and dip it into odorless thinner to move it around to remove some of the excess and any of the pooling that may have occurred during the application. So let me get this on and I'll show you the end result once it's all completed. Okay, here is the completed figure, the driver in the truck. And as you can see, as the truck goes around here, you got another view that the steering wheel is installed and the driver is holding on to the steering wheel in his hand. It was very tricky to get that steering wheel attached. But you definitely want to do that after you've got the figure in. If you've got the steering wheel already attached, it's going to be almost impossible to get that figure in with the steering wheel already on the vehicle. So you definitely want to do the figure and then put in the steering wheel. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how this is looking right now with the driver in the truck. And we're going to go ahead and paint up all the other figures, and we'll come back and we'll show you the completed model. I was not preparing to do a video on any of the figures because I'm going to be basically doing all the figures the same way. But when I opened up the package for this particular figure, I was surprised that we have this. And looks like we're going to have to take these supports off. Now this is the arm, and that's holding the rifle. So this piece here is the arm here and the two hands holding the gun in this position right here. So here's the gun, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but that's one of the hands right here. And over in the other part of the gun right here, that's the other hand. And we're going to have to take the supports off, and I was really surprised to see that. And then again, of course, you also have the grenades, and they're also on supports. Now, this is kind of sort of like a good thing because the grenades on the supports are going to act very good for holding the parts as you paint them. And then once they're dry, you can remove those supports and do whatever little minor touch-up you need to do. But I was not prepared to see this. And this is going to take a lot of preparation to get all these supports off and then sand everything down that needs to be sanded down. And the other thing that I've noticed while taking a very close look at this is that it doesn't look as though this would be a good figure to paint once it's all assembled. The way this figure is constructed, it looks as if it might be better for someone like me, who's not an expert painter, figure painter, or anything like that, to paint these parts as a sub-assembly. And then once the parts are painted, then start assembling the figure, and then whatever minor touch-up that needs to be done, you can do it afterwards. And I think that's the best way to go, because as you can see, the way in which he's holding the gun onto his lap, it doesn't look like it would be really easy to paint the pants, and then you've got the strap right there, and then you got the hands and everything that's going on in there. It looks like it would be a lot easier to paint that as a separate piece rather than wait until it's fully assembled. So that's what my plan is going to be. My first plan, of course, is to clean these all up, soap and water first, give this a good primer. I'm going to use this part here that needs to be cut off. I'm going to use that as a holder. I'm going to clamp that in my paint clamp, and then give this a nice spray of Tamiya gray primer. And then also do the same thing on this as well. Give this a nice coat of primer, and then wait for that to dry overnight, and then start tackling the painting. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do all that and start all the painting. And if there's any other build tips that come along that I think I need to let you know about, I'll pause on my build and point those out for you. But hopefully the next time that we come back, you're going to see a fully painted, weathered, and assembled figure ready to be put on the truck. But we'll see what happens. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and do all the cleanup, all the prep work, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, you can see that I've done a lot of work on this. All the painting has come out pretty good. What I wanted to do is to pause a little bit and give you some heads up or some building tips on this. In order for me to get the jacket area here, the chest area, or that chest piece, and glued nice and flush to the pants, I had to cut the lug that's on this piece right here. There's a lug underneath. I had to cut that off in order to get this to be nice and flush. So as you're doing yours, you may want to keep in mind that you may have to cut that in order for these two pieces to fit correctly. I also had a little bit of problem with the arms. I had some gaps up in here, even after cutting the lugs off the arms to get them to attach to the jacket area. I still had to get some putty and fill in some gaps, but you can see that after filling in those areas and smoothing out the putty, everything came out nice and smooth. And a little bit of touch-up paint, you can't even tell that there was any work that was done in that area. So that came out really, really well. The other thing I wanted to point out too, which is another builder's tip, is that the gun is encased in a lot of supports, if you recall earlier, and you want to take your time on removing each individual support. It took me about 15 or 20 minutes to cut all those supports off, because it's very easy to cut the barrel off. The barrel is buried in those supports, and if you're not careful and looking carefully, you could mistake the barrel as being one of those supports. So take your time and do one support at a time, and you should be okay. My idea of painting each piece individually and then affixing it to the figure turned out to be a very good way of doing this figure, at least for me. It was a lot more easier to paint and to do the detail painting on it with the individual pieces before they were attached than it would have been if I completed the entire figure and then did all the painting. You can see over here I've got the head, the feet, and a couple other items there that are all painted and they're ready to go onto the figure. But I just wanted to pause to give you some building tips on that. So hopefully this will be completed, and the next time we come back, you'll see 3 figures or 4 figures on the completed build. Okay, you can see that I am still putting this figure together, and I paused at this point because I want to do a couple of build tips. One of the first build tips I want to let you know about is I still had to cut the lug off of the torso in order for it to fit down here under the legs. You can see that is now a nice tight fit and nice and flush, and the only way I was able to get that done is to cut the lug off of that torso. Putting the arm over here was no problem. I didn't have to cut the lug off of that, but I am going to have to either cut the lug on here on the other arm or at least sand it down, because right now when I put that on, you can see that there is, see if I can't get that on there like so. Oops. This goes on like this. There is a gap right there that I want to address. So in order to get that to fit flush, I am going to have to either sand that lug down or basically cut it off. I do think though for me to paint all the parts individually, like this right here, and you got the hand and the gun and so forth, I think all the parts being painted separately is the way to go. For me, it was a lot easier to paint this figure with all the parts done separately and then assemble it. And then if you have to do any touch-up, it's no real big deal. One of the other problems that I had on all the figures, including this one, is getting the feet on. And they just do not fit very well at all on the bottom of the leg. I had a hard time trying to get the feet to go on right, to get them to go on straight. So what I did was, and I did this on the other two figures as well, and it seems to be working out really well, is that I filled in the bottom of the area here where the foot goes into the leg with gray putty. And then when the putty was still damp, I pressed the foot into that putty to make a hole and to position the foot in the way that I wanted it to. And then I removed it, waited for the putty to completely dry, painted it, and then I was able to reapply the foot in there to the exact position and orientation that I was looking for. So that worked out perfectly for me. Otherwise, you're going to have a little bit of a difficult time trying to get these feet onto the legs because they just do not really fit very well. Okay, so those are some of the build tips that I have for you. Now you'll notice that I do have the hand is not on right now, and I'm going to put that on just like so. And this is going to allow me to position the rifle and the hand in the way that I want to, so that the rifle is sitting on the leg at the right angle or the right position. So putting this on last, I think is going to work out really, really well. And of course, I always put the head on last as well because it makes it a lot easier to paint it. And you'll notice that those eyes are really, really stark, but I'm still not done with the face. So that's going to work out a little bit later as we get with more of the shadowing and everything else on the last step of doing the figure. So so don't worry about those eyes looking kind of ghosty or anything like that. It's going to all blend in a little bit later. The one thing that I am kind of curious about, and I have no idea what this piece is for, but this came with the parts, and I have no idea what this is, and I have no idea how it's supposed to go onto the figure. There is nothing on the figure that shows where this could possibly go. And so if anybody out there knows what this part is for and how it applies to this figure, please let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, my plan is to just add this piece here to the truck or maybe to the trailer as just some storage gear. But if anyone knows what this is, let me know in the comment section. Alright, so that's it for this figure. I'm going to continue putting this together, and then hopefully when we come back as I complete the other two figures, the next thing that I'll be able to show you is the completed build with all the gear, the figures on the truck, and the trailer, and all that. Okay, the figures are all done, and I have them now securely into the Jeep. And I didn't really have too much of a problem, other than the fact of trying to get those figures on the Jeep securely was a little bit of a task to do. But once you get it all kind of figured out, you shouldn't have any real problems. The way that I did it was that for the soldier that is there sitting on the back with his arm over the gun, I have his foot securely glued onto an ammo box, and then his other foot is securely glued onto the seat. And then for the soldier that's holding the rifle, I have him glued onto the railing, and then part of his feet, the heel section of his 2 feet, one is securely glued to the seat, and the other one is securely glued to the protrusion that comes out from the side of the truck. Now these figures can be easily broken off, so be very, very careful when you're handling your truck or your Jeep, because these figures can easily break off. That soldier with the rifle has broken off a couple of times. The MP figure, I didn't really have too much of a problem. The biggest problem that I had with the MP figure was with the hand and the gun. That is one piece. That's a resin print. And all these pieces for the figure are in one bag. So as the figure pieces are rolling around that bag, it's going to break off those resin supports. And in so doing that, the strap of the gun broke off, and it also broke it in half. So I had to glue the strap together, and then I had to glue the strap back onto the gun as well. But as you can see, that wasn't too much of a problem. The biggest problem that I had was to secure the hand into the end of the arm. Getting that gun in between the body and the arm is extremely tight. That piece is not glued in. It is so tightly wedged between the body and the arm that it's not going anywhere. So be cautious of that. If you glue the hand in first and then glue the arm onto the body, then you're going to have a big gap around the shoulder area. You're going to have to use putty in order to seal that in. So I opted to put the arm on first and then just wedge the gun into place. Now there is a detail upset for this, and that's where I got some of the gear that you see in the back of the truck. And I highly recommend that you get that detail upset because it is well worth it. There are some resin parts in there, or excuse me, photo etch parts in there that you can use to put onto the gun and a couple other details. There's side armament that you can put on there. There's a side gun or rifle that you can put right next to the driver or the passenger, and a few other detail sets. So I highly recommend that you get that. Well, I really hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up because that really does help the channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, please remember to subscribe, as that also will help the channel, and it will also notify you of new videos that are coming out. And speaking of new videos, I will be doing a 1/8 scale die-cast metal model of this, so watch for that to come onto the channel real soon. Other than that, I thank you for watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.